Okay, this is the airlock, and this is about 2.5 weeks into the fermenting cycle. You can see kind of how it works. The gas comes up from the center, and it kind of moves the airlock a little bit. Now, depending on who you talk to and what you're doing and the kind of yeast, a lot of times the recipe or people will tell you that you need to shake it, especially if you're going to make something with a higher alcohol. Maybe you've got a license to make ethanol for your fuel. You might want to shake it to stir it up. And a lot of times, see how it starts acting more? You're going to know that it's fermented when you shake that and nothing else happens. But that's the yeast basically exhaling the carbon dioxide as a byproduct. Also, the actual alcohol is a byproduct of the yeast eating those sugars inside the container. Now, what will happen is once the yeast eat enough of the sugar and grow, the alcohol that they're producing is going to get to such a concentration that it'll kill the yeast, and that's where the different genuses and species of the yeast come in. Now, in the part one, I said basically you could use, yeast is basically yeast, but each yeast is a different species, a different race, I guess, of yeast, you could say, and they all have different temperatures that they like to stay at, different specific gravities of sugar that they like, but they all basically work the same. And when it gets to be too much alcohol, it'll kill the yeast, and that bubbling will stop. Okay, so it's been about 6 weeks. I know that the recipe said it'd take about 4 weeks for it to get done, but I must not have put enough yeast in there. And I think my recipe called for champagne yeast, and you saw where I use bread yeast. So it took a little longer. It took about 6 weeks and a day, actually, for this to quit bubbling. So we shake it, we stir it, all from the outside because I don't want to raise up the sediment any more than I have to. But you shake it and it's quit bubbling, so I know that it's done. So now what we're going to do is bottle. Now, they say when you're making wine or beer or whatever, you can do your primary fermentation, which is what we've done in the plastic. But your secondary fermentation, say we were going to do champagne, we're going to do beer, anything that was carbonated, you need to do that in glass. If you're going to store it, you need to store it in glass because the alcohol might be able to leach taste and things from the plastic. So I don't have any bottles. Like I said, this is kind of a cheap down and dirty. So what we're using is some mason jars, and we've boiled them and scalded them and sanitized them and all that best practice stuff. So now what we have to do is get the wine out of the 5-gallon bucket and into the jars down there. And the way that we're going to do that, we're not going to pour it because all the yeast bodies, they've ate the sugar, and the alcohol gets to do much to them after they've grown, and they die, and they made like a, their dead bodies kind of make a sediment on the bottom, and if I just pour it, it's going to stir all that up. So we've let it sit a little while, a couple days, and let that settle down in the bottom. So we have to siphon it out. We don't want to use just a regular siphon, plastic tube that you suck on, because you don't want to drink my wine that I've sucked through a straw, do you? So we've got what we call a racking cane, and all a racking cane is a rigid piece of plastic or metal. It's got a little end which lets water flow in the top, but we won't. It's closed at the bottom, so if it sits on the bottom, it's not going to suck up things directly. It's got to come over the top. So we're going to stick this in pretty close to the bottom and suck the liquid up, and then it's just got a 4-foot hose on there So, and that was probably, I think the siphon tube was $2.99, and it was like $1 a foot, and I got 4 foot of tube, best as I can recall. So the way this works is you're going to fill it, the tube and the hose up with water, okay, and then you're going to bring it over here, keeping your thumb on the end of the hose, and up high you're going to take it and just plunge it down through your fermenter hole, and then once it's in there, you let off with your thumb and take it to lower than the bottom of your funnel. Now that'll make a siphon, because as the water flows out, the alcohol is going to keep flowing out too. And that's why we've got the fermenter up on the table and the glass jars down on the floor. So now I'm going to just fill this up with water. Here we go. The guy at the store, when he tried to sell me the $30 siphon, he told me it took him 20 times to figure out how to do that. It only took us twice. You know, this gets better as you age it. I should probably get some oat chips and put in the mason jars. You can actually buy wooden 5-gallon oat barrels to age your wine in, but the whole purpose of doing this is to do it cheap. Okay, here's the solids that I was talking about. That's all dead yeast down there. Very, very little liquid. All that's dust. Here's what we got out of it. Like I said, I thought I'd get about 4 gallons, and I'm right. I've got a little over 4 gallons. This one, these two, were the last little bit that we pulled right as we lost suction, and so there's a little bit of sediment in them. But what I want to show you, I cannot find my hydrometer, so I've got a proof meter, an alcometer, which really isn't the right tool for this because it measures in proof and not percentage alcohol. And I can't find my graduated cylinder. But that thing's reading about 12 proof, so it's about 6% alcohol, which isn't bad for grape juice from the frozen section and some bread yeast. If I'd have used champagne yeast or something like that, I could have got about 12% or so. But now we're just gonna bottle this up, sit it down in the basement in the root cellar, and drink it as the want fills us. So till next time, you can always catch us online at the blog www.tngun.com. Thanks.